The rejection came so quietly that at first, Emily Harper thought she had imagined it. She stood alone on the crowded train platform, clutching a worn leather suitcase with trembling fingers. Around her, strangers hurried past, greeting loved ones with smiles and laughter. Children ran into waiting arms. Husbands kissed wives. Friends reunited after long journeys. But no one came for her. The train that had carried her across hundreds of miles disappeared into the distance, leaving behind only a cloud of dust and the crushing realization that she had been abandoned. Emily swallowed hard and looked down at the letter she had read 100 times during the journey. The handwriting belonged to Thomas Reed, the man who had promised to marry her. He had written about his ranch, his hopes for the future, and the life they would build together. Every word had sounded sincere. Every promise had felt real. Now she stood in a town she had never seen before, with barely enough money for a meal and no idea where she would sleep that night. Humiliation settled heavily on her shoulders. People noticed. Some stared. Others whispered. Emily fought back tears. She had left everything behind for a chance at a better life. Her parents were gone. Her small hometown offered no opportunities. When Thomas's letters arrived through a matchmaking service, they had seemed like an answer to every prayer she had ever whispered. Now she realized she had been foolish enough to believe them. The afternoon sun slowly drifted lower. One by one, people left the station. Soon only Emily remained. She sat on a wooden bench, trying to appear stronger than she felt. The truth was terrifying. She was completely alone. That was when she heard the sound of approaching hoofbeats. A horse stopped nearby. Emily looked up. The rider wasn't what she expected. He wasn't young or handsome in the polished way Thomas had described himself in his letters. The cowboy looked weathered by years of hard work. His hat was faded. His boots were dusty. A faint scar crossed one cheek. Yet there was something remarkably gentle in his eyes. "Miss," he said carefully, "you waiting for someone?" Emily hesitated. Her pride urged her to lie, but exhaustion won. "No." The cowboy studied her face. His expression softened immediately. "Been here all day?" She nodded. "Did somebody fail to show?" The question opened a wound she had been desperately trying to hide. Tears filled her eyes despite her efforts. The cowboy glanced away respectfully, giving her dignity instead of pity. "My name's Jack Callahan," he said. "Mind if I sit?" Emily nodded again. Jack sat on the opposite end of the bench. For a few moments, neither spoke. Then Emily quietly explained everything. The letters, the journey, the missing groom, the uncertainty. Jack listened without interruption. When she finished, he let out a long sigh. "That's a cruel thing to do to someone." Emily laughed bitterly. "I suppose I should have known better." "No," Jack replied firmly. "You should have expected honesty." The words surprised her. Most people would have blamed her. Instead, this stranger blamed the person who had deceived her. The kindness nearly made her cry again. The sun dipped lower. Jack finally stood. "Have you eaten today?" Emily shook her head. "Then come on." "I can't pay?" "I didn't ask if you could." She hesitated. Trusting strangers wasn't wise, yet something about Jack felt safe. He led her to a small diner near the station. The owner greeted him warmly. "You rescuing another stray, Jack?" Jack chuckled. "Just helping somebody who needs a meal." Emily noticed something interesting. The people in town clearly respected him. Not because he was wealthy, not because he was powerful, but because he was kind. That evening he bought her dinner. Then he arranged a room at the local boarding house. When Emily offered to repay him someday, he waved away the suggestion. "Get settled first. Why are you helping me?" she asked. Jack looked genuinely confused. "Because somebody ought to." The answer was so simple that it left her speechless. The next morning, Emily expected Jack to disappear from her life. Instead, he returned. And the day after that, and the day after that, he helped her find temporary work at the town bakery. He introduced her to respectable people. He made sure she wasn't being taken advantage of. Never once did he ask for anything in return. Weeks passed. Emily slowly began rebuilding her confidence. The shame she had carried from the train station gradually faded. For the first time since arriving, she felt hopeful. One afternoon, she finally asked the question that had been bothering her. "Why aren't you married?" Jack laughed. That's a dangerous question. I'm serious. He grew thoughtful. My parents got sick years ago. Needed looking after. And after that, there was always another responsibility. His voice carried no bitterness, only acceptance. Emily realized something. Jack had spent most of his life putting other people first, not because he expected praise, not because he wanted recognition, simply because it was who he was. The realization touched her deeply. Months later, an unexpected visitor arrived in town. Thomas Reed. Emily recognized him immediately from the photograph he had once sent. He looked nervous as he approached her. I can explain. Emily stared at him. Strangely, she felt nothing. No anger, no heartbreak, only clarity. Thomas launched into excuses. Business problems, cold feet, unexpected circumstances. One excuse after another. Finally, Emily raised a hand. Stop. He fell silent. You abandoned me. I know, but... No. Her voice remained calm. You left me alone in a place where I knew no one. Thomas lowered his eyes. I was scared. Emily nodded slowly. So was I. The difference between those two fears suddenly became obvious. Thomas had run away from responsibility. Jack had stepped toward it. One man had chosen selfishness. The other had chosen kindness. Thomas attempted a weak smile. Maybe we could start over. Emily almost laughed. The answer was easier than she expected. No. For the first time, she truly understood her own worth. Thomas left town the following morning. Emily watched him go without regret. That evening, she found Jack repairing a fence near his ranch. You seem happier, he observed. I am. She helped him hold a board in place. After a few moments, she asked quietly, Do you ever get tired of helping everyone? Jack smiled. Sometimes. Then why keep doing it? He leaned against the fence. When I was young, my father told me something. What? He said every person you meet is carrying a burden you can't see. If you have the chance to make that burden lighter, even for a minute, do it. Emily felt tears sting her eyes, because that was exactly what Jack had done for her. On the worst day of her life, he had chosen kindness, a simple choice. Yet it had changed everything. Winter arrived, then spring. The friendship between Emily and Jack deepened into something neither had expected. Something built not on promises written in letters, not on dreams or fantasies, but on trust, respect, and genuine care. One evening, Jack invited her to watch the sunset from a hill overlooking the valley. Golden light stretched across the fields. The world seemed peaceful and endless. For several minutes, neither spoke. Then Jack cleared his throat. I never planned on saying this. Emily's heart raced. But I'm glad that train arrived. She smiled softly. Even though it brought trouble? Because it brought you. The emotion in his voice was impossible to miss. Emily looked at the man beside her. The man who had asked for nothing. The man who had given everything. The man who had restored her faith in people when she had nearly lost it forever. And suddenly she realized something beautiful. The greatest gift of her life had arrived disguised as her greatest disappointment. The man she thought she needed had abandoned her. The man she truly needed had found her, not because fate owed her anything, but because kindness still existed in the world. Emily reached for Jack's hand. His fingers closed around hers. Neither needed many words. Some truths were too meaningful for speeches. Years later, people in town would often tell the story of how Emily Harper arrived alone at the station. Most remembered the heartbreak. Most remembered the scandal. But Emily remembered something else. She remembered a lonely bench, a fading sunset, and the sound of hoofbeats approaching when she needed help most. Because sometimes life closes one door so completely that all you can see is darkness. And then, without warning, a good person appears. Not to save you, not to rescue you, but to remind you that humanity is still alive, that kindness still matters, and that the right person often arrives when hope seems lost. For Emily, that person came riding toward a train station on a dusty horse, carrying nothing more than a gentle heart and a willingness to help a stranger. In the end, that was worth far more than every promise she had ever been given.